Welcome back to my hot kitchen. I'm Wendy, and I have an amazing feast worked up for you to share with your sweetie on your next romantic date night at home. Tonight's feast features a very special entree, roast duck with strawberry wine sauce featuring its famously crispy skin. On the side, a little curried rice pilaf and spicy wilted arugula. But for starters, you'll be enjoying an Orzo pasta salad. So let's get started with the duck first. First thing that you're going to want to do is open up the duck and pull out the innards. Typically they come with a neck and some livers and some other parts as well. And obviously you aren't going to need those for roasting. Next thing you're going to want to do is pull off any pieces of gorgeous, luscious duck fat that you find. And you are going to want to set those aside. One of the great features about roasting a duck is the fact that you can use the rendered duck fat for many purposes. Just think of how good bacon fat tastes when you cook potatoes in it. Duck fat does a lot of those same things, but in some ways, even better. Okay, so that is everything that I want to get out of the duck. Next thing that I'm going to do is take the duck over here to the cutting board, and I'm going to cut off the pieces of the ends, because those are just going to overcook and brown, and they're really not going to do anything for you. So just chop them off at this point now, and save yourself the trouble later. Work your knife in between the joint, crack it off. The next thing to do is take the duck over to a sink and give it a little bath. So use cool water and rinse the duck inside and out thoroughly. Reach in there with your hand and make sure you're loosening up any little bits that might be trapped in there. This just helps to ensure that the duck has a nice clean flavor. Turn the duck back over so that all the water can drain out. Give it a little shake. Such a nice fatty little bird. Then we'll take it back over here. And then you're going to need some paper towels, because you're going to want to dry the duck off as best you can to ensure a nice crispy skin. Shake it out. Kind of pat it dry. Focus your patting efforts on the breast and the back, because those are the parts that are most important to make sure they're dry before you stick it in the oven. Reach inside and try to get that too. And now you're going to want to season the duck up. Actually, let's do a little trimming before we get to that point. So there's this giant flap of skin there. And there's different schools of thought on the flap of skin, but I don't really like it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. And I'm going to render the fat out of it a little bit later. Back here, just checking for anything that I don't really like, anything that looks unpalatable. It all looks pretty good now. So now I'm going to take a very generous amount of salt, rub it on the inside of the cavity of the bird, and a very generous amount of pepper, and do the same thing. Repeat with the outside. Salt is the most important part of this. The pepper does help, but it's not as critical to the development of the flavor as the salt. I'm using about a tablespoon of nice sea salt all in all. Well, that's yummy. Now flip it back over. Continue rubbing until you feel a nice even texture on the outside of the skin. And then the next thing that you're going to want to do is stuff something aromatic inside the bird. It's going to help to absorb any off flavors and also help to enhance the flavor overall. So that was a nice sprig of fresh rosemary. I also have a couple fresh sprigs of marjoram, and to really have a lot of fun, a couple fresh sprigs of mint. And these are going to do the same job that the traditional celery and onion would do, only I think they're going to do it a little bit better. So the next thing you're going to need is a nice roasting pan, because this bird is going to drip out a whole lot of luscious fat. So I'm going to place it on the rack right there. I'm going to tie its little legs up. You don't need to go through the trouble of a full-on truss here. It just seems to be enough to tie the legs. There we go. Get them all rounded up. Tie it, excuse me, tie it nice and tight. And take these little wings and tuck them back behind the breast. Situate them on the rack. And then take something sharp, maybe the tines of a fork or one of these cool little things, and poke into the skin. And you want to do this several times over the surface of the bird. And you want to do this so that the fat can render out. You know, maybe my poker has just gotten dull because it's not quite doing the job. So I'm going to switch over to paring knife here, and I'm going to pull the skin up and continue with the piercing. Very important that when you're piercing that you're just getting the soft fatty layer and into the skin. If you go too much deeper into the flesh, the duck can bleed and taint the beautiful color of the breast. So that is why you see me sort of pinching it. I'm going to make sure to get up in here because there is tons of fat reserved in the legs. Look at how white that is and how soft and squishy. You definitely want all that to drain out. So some people recommend that you actually score the meat of the breast and the back in order to allow that fat to render out. And that's fine too, but I actually prefer the poking method a little bit more because I feel that it is less risky and just a little bit easier to execute without messing up the bird. Now I'm going to flip it over and make sure that I repeat on the other side. Okay, well that's enough poking to get started here. So once again, I'm going to tuck those wings back behind the bird and situate the little guy or girl on its rack right here. I'm going to wash my hands really quick. And then we're going to put the duck in the oven. I've got it preset at 325 degrees, which is a nice low temperature. And we're going to flip it about every half hour or so to allow the fat to render out and gather in the foil lining that I placed in the bottom of the pan. So the next thing we're going to do is start working on the orzo pasta salad. So you're going to want to take about a half cup's worth of orzo and cook it according to package directions. Of course, you're going to want to add a nice amount of salt and a bit of olive oil to help enhance the flavor and prevent it from sticking. Give it a nice little loving stir and let it do its thing. And while the orzo cooks, you can start working on the rest of the salad. It's pretty straightforward. You're going to need the florets of about, half a head of broccoli. You want to make sure they're kind of broken up so that you get the most delicate texture. You're also going to need about 1 scallion and a little bit of pulped, chopped up tomato, about 1/8 of a cup of raisins. I recommend using golden raisins. About a tablespoon or so of mayonnaise and about a teaspoon or so of Dijon mustard. an ounce of red wine vinegar, about 2 tablespoons to 1/8 of a cup of sugar, and some nice Kalamata olives. That's about a half dozen chopped up. Stir that together. Add a little pinch of fresh mint. You're going to need about a tablespoon of mint for the sauce that goes over the duck, so just steal a little from that. Stir it together. Season it generously with salt and pepper. And allow it to mix together. Allow the vinegar to break down the vegetables and sort of hydrate the raisins. This can sit for anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour. And this is going to form the basis of flavor that is the orzo salad. Just going to let that relax there and do its thing for about 10 minutes. And then, because I don't want to waste the precious duck fat that I'm going to have tonight, I'm actually going to take those little scraps that I pulled off the duck earlier and over low heat, just sort of render the fat out. Anytime I cook a duck, I always like to make sure to save the fat. It's so wonderful to cook with. So this rendering is kind of a slow process. I've got my pan set on nice medium-low heat. I'm just going to allow the fat to sort of seep out, and then I'm going to drain it off and stash it away in a little jar in my fridge. Well, this orzo is done, so I'm going to go ahead and pour it off. I have a colander here in my sink. I'm going to rinse the pan, get all the orzo out of it, and hit the pasta with cool water to cool it down. This is a cold salad, so you're definitely going to want the pasta to work with you on that and be nice and chilled. Now you get to shake it out. Get as much of that water off as you can. Bring it back over here. Dress it up with a little olive oil. Keep it from sticking and help to get that nice pasta flavor going on. And since this is all going to end up in the same pot, I'm just going to use the spoon for the salad that I mixed up the broccoli and whatnot with. Toss it in the olive oil. And then drop it in the salad bowl. Take the entire thing and stir it together. Get it all nice and happy. You can see how the orzo is going to soak up most all the dressing that you had in there. And of course the ingredients are going to toss beautifully. You want to give it a little taste to check your seasonings. Ooh, I got a little bite of the grape and the olive in there together. So tasty. Okay, let's get to plating this. Couple nice little salad plates here, and I'm just going to lay a very small bed of arugula on there. Planning on using most of this arugula to go along with the duck. And this is more just to enhance the orzo than anything. Take a couple spoonfuls of the orzo, lay it atop the arugula. Make sure you get plenty of broccoli and good stuff in there. The arugula just adds a nice, sweet, spicy background. It really makes this into more of a salad than a starch side. Crumble a bit of feta cheese over the top. Doesn't that look nice? About an ounce's worth. Split it between the two plates. And because it's a salad, and I think salad should always have croutons, I'm going to add a few croutons that I crumbled up into fine breadcrumbs. Garnish with that. Now before we dig into these appetizers, I'm going to go ahead and turn the duck. So remember we talked about how you want to turn about every half hour or so. Grab my oven mitts here. get this roasting pan out. So this is a bit of a tricky process. First of all, you got to make sure those wings are not stuck under the rack. And in this particular pan, I'm going to need to secure the rack with my gloved hand. I'm just going to kind of ease it on over. Come on, little guy. There we go. And more pricking, just a little bit. Hit the fatty spots towards the tail and the thighs first. And then put it back in the oven, let it roast more. Aww.
It's dinner time, kitty.
Aha. Kitty. A little salad to get us started, because it's still going to be a couple hours before dinner, you know.
Looks wonderful.
Yeah.
That is delicious.
Yum. A little crusty buttered toast to go with that too. Just gonna pull the bird out of the oven here again. I'm gonna handle it very carefully because I've got a nice little reservoir of extremely hot and delicious duck fat. Now as the bird cooks, it does get softer and the skin gets easier to tear. So you want to handle it with even more care. And there may be a point where you just can't flip it anymore without damaging it. But we are not there yet. That's looking quite tasty. A little bit more pricking of the fatty skin. Definitely more here in the thighs where we know there's tons of fat. Look at that, just pouring out. Yum. And then let's put it back in the oven. So now let's start working on the strawberry merlot sauce. This is the sauce that's going to go over the entire bird and make it just all crispy and sweet and yummy. So you're going to want to start with a little bit of olive oil preheated in a saute pan. To that you're going to want to add about 3 cloves worth of garlic. And also about a cup's worth of chopped up strawberries. About a tablespoon of oyster sauce. It's going to add a nice saltiness and complexity to the sauce. About a ½ teaspoon of fresh rosemary chopped, and about a tablespoon of fresh mint chopped. Give that a little stir. It smells incredible when the rosemary, mint, garlic, and strawberries start cooking together. Allow them just a few moments for the flavors to combine. And then add into it about a ½ cup of Merlot. And then add about a ½ cup of white sugar, a hot chili pepper, I'm using a Guajiro chili pepper, and a bay leaf. Now stir to dissolve the sugar, and then bring this mix up to a boil, and let it boil for about 5 minutes, and then drop it down to a simmer for about 2. The strawberry sauce is looking good and happy now. I'm gonna reach in there and pull out my little spicy pepper. And the bay leaf, it's in here somewhere. There it is. Come on out of there. The next step to this delicious sauce, just smash up the strawberries. Do it over the heat while the sauce is cooking so that you can capture all the thickening power of the pectin that is in the strawberries. Mash it up till you have a nice fine consistency. You're basically making a quick, spiced homemade jam. That's coming along nicely. Got a little gathered up on top there. I'm gonna go ahead and work that off the top of my masher, back into the sauce. That looks fantastic right there. This is ready to go on the bird. So I'm gonna grab this and the bay leaf and the pepper, bring it over here. I'm gonna get the bird out of the oven. Again, handling it very carefully because of all the fat in there. Certainly don't want that to end up on you. You want to take the sauce and pour it over the entire part of the bird. And before you do that, you're going to want to stuff this pepper and the bay leaf into the inner cavity. Just going to add another little layer of flavor. Make this taste really tasty. There we go. Now I'm going to make sure to hit both sides. So I'm going to flip it over very gently because it's getting kind of fragile at this point. Pour this lovely sauce over it. Doesn't that look good? Kind of spread it around on there, make sure the wings get a little love too. I'm less concerned about the back than I am about the breasts and the top. Pour it over here. And I'm going to reserve just a little bit to finish it off when it comes out of the oven. Spread it around again. Doesn't that look tasty? All right, let's put this bird back in. It's in its final cooking stage now. Now let's go back and finish up this rice. Or actually, let's start the rice. The first thing that you're going to want to do is pull out these pieces that you've been rendering the fat out of. Now you can make little yummy things with these if you like. You can blend them into a stock or a sauce. Once I've rendered the fat out of them, I'm kind of over. I have a little tempered glass jar here. I'm going to go ahead and pour off most of the duck fat into the jar. Really just leaving enough to coat the bottom of the pan. That's going to scrape up the little bits of meat that are in there and add those over here with their friends on my plate. Now I'm going to add about a tablespoon or so's worth of chopped onion, a couple tablespoons worth of chopped red or sweet pepper. Green bell pepper works fine too. About a chopped up Roma tomato that has been pulped. I'm going to give that a little bit of time to get all happy here in the duck fat. Now in this formulative stage of flavor, I'm also going to add a nice little blend of spices. Add about a half teaspoon of curry, a quarter teaspoon of turmeric, a quarter teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and about a half teaspoon of celery salt. I'm going to add that in now so that the spices can reach their full flavor potential. I'm going to cook these vegetables for about 10 minutes over medium heat. Well, that's coming along nicely. There is one more detail that you want to make sure you do with the duck. And that is you want to crank the heat up. So I've got it at 325 right now, and I'm going to crank it up to about 400 degrees. That's going to help the sauce to sort of sear on there and make that skin nice and crisp. And these vegetables are moving right along, so we can move along with the pilaf as well. Next step is to add about 3/4 of a cup of jasmine rice and about a 1/4 cup of chopped up hazelnuts. Let these mix together, blend together, and become all good and happy and loved up. You want to saute the rice till you see some of it sort of puff up and whiten a little bit. This looks great. The hazelnuts have toasted a little bit, the rice is starting to turn opaque, it's perfect. Now you're going to want to add about 2 cups of beef stock, and of course I'm going to be using my own special glaze. Those are 2 cubes of highly concentrated beef stock, homemade, and about 2 cups of water. And just so you know, this batch of rice turns out to be a pretty good size, which is fine, because the duck offers between 4 to 6 servings. So why not just go ahead and make this yummy rice dish, adding about a half teaspoon of salt, by the way, in advance so that you can enjoy this amazing meal at least one more time. Now bring this up to a boil, put a lid on it, drop it down to a simmer for about 20 minutes. Another good thing about duck is that you can just never baste it too much. It just loves having yummy stuff brushed all over it. So after you put it in, feel free to, as many times as you like, brush more of your yummy strawberry sauce over the top of it. Well, this is looking delicious. What a nice accompaniment with the spices and the savoriness and whatnot. It's gonna be a wonderful accompaniment to the sweet, crispy skinned duck. The other accompaniment to that is gonna be a nice spicy arugula, wilted. But before we get going on the arugula, we're definitely gonna wanna get the duck out of the oven so that it has a chance to rest. Like any roasted meat, a duck benefits from a little time to sit and rest and cool down before you start carving it. Oh my, that looks awesome. So I'm going to use olive oil for this. You can use a little bit of the rendered duck fat if you like. I don't like everything to taste the same on the plate though, so that's why I'm using the olive oil. I'm going to get it warmed up here in the pan. And I have like 5 ounces worth of arugula here, except for the arugula that I put in the salad. I'm just going to toss with a little red wine vinegar, salt and pepper, and keep it super simple. I'm going to use 2 utensils here and sort of rotate this around. You can see that it's already starting to wilt. This really doesn't take long here. Add a little more of this yummy red wine vinegar. Whew, that is yum. What a perfect side dish. When it's at that point, you want to take it off the heat, and it will be ready when the duck is ready. So cutting up a duck isn't all that different from cutting up a chicken or a turkey or any other sort of bird. It does have a little bit different bone structure. So like any bird, when you're cutting it up, you just kind of want to work your knife in there gently and easily and let the sharpness do the work, not you. An interesting thing is the way that the duck meat connects around the back, which, by the way, when you come back later, don't forget about all the luscious meat on the backside. Yum. So now I'm going to slide that up this way. There we go. Just want to get all that sticky yumminess off my fingers so I get a nice clean presentation on the plate. Nice little scoop of this yummy curried rice. Pinch of the arugula. And I'm just going to be serving up the breast tonight. We'll serve the legs and thighs for tomorrow night. And there you go. You just cooked a duck, and it really wasn't that much harder than cooking a chicken now, was it? And you've got the added benefit of a whole bunch of luscious duck fat, perfect for making anything that you would normally use butter, olive oil, or bacon fat in. Now, serve this up with a nice red wine, something fruity and bright like a Merlot, which is what you cook the strawberries in. And call in your sweetie. Out with the apron. With the apron.
Hi.
It's time for some quack, 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 quack.
Wow.
That's good.
All right. This looks delicious. You are amazing.
Thank you. Just like to make yummy food. Yeah. And, you know, there's a whole nother night of this, too.
Yum. Kitchen. This is such a hot kitchen. Yummy. Hot kitchen.
So thanks for joining me in my hot kitchen tonight. Have fun turning up the heat in your kitchen. And I'll see you next week. Night night.